All right, David, you have the floor. Go ahead and take your liberty. Tell us how the book of Enoch is applied to humanity today. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and all my questions that I have, I'll just go ahead and type it in the chat and I'll present it up here. So go ahead and prove your case. How does it apply to the 21st century in our government, our culture, our social constructs? How does it apply to us? Go ahead.
Oh, sure. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on here, and I hope you guys enjoyed the wonderful groovy hairdo that I have going on this morning. Um, First off, I want to say because there are some some people are going to be drawn away by the hiccups to this hiccups. I say because scholars such as James H. Charlesworth um, and James C. Vanderkam, they've noted redactions from the Dead Sea Scrolls. James H. Charlesworth specifically wrote an entire book about how the chapters that contain the prophecies of the Son of Man appeared to be cut out rather than torn or worn naturally. And James Vanderkam notes similar redactions. Like if you go and look, like I have right here in my hand, what's called a 210 book Bible. It's supposed to be an LSV, right? However, whenever you get to the 10th week of the animal apocalypse, as it's termed, you're going to notice that everything from the 7th to the 10th week is just gone. And then it goes to the statement that people reference by Paul, where he talks about the height and the depth that are seen. And he's like, who can see these things? And Paul kind of references that. And he says that we may all with the saints know the height and the depth, but it's all the same passage that they're alluding to. Now, the reason that's important is because I don't want you to be sidetracked by that, because we have faithfully noted Ethiopia having Israelites as early as 525 BC and actual historical documents actually already being in their military. Now, what happens to us within 400 years? Africans come here, they're in our military. Guess what? The same thing happened with Israel. And you have people coming from Israel to Ethiopia, and within 400 years, they're in their military. Now, I'm going to probably suggest sooner than that, but that's all I can prove. The reason that's important is because we can backdate their canon of scripture thereby to at least 946 BC, whenever Menelik returns to Ethiopia. The reason that's important is because we don't always need the Dead Sea Scrolls for every reference. We have to use a little bit of common sense. Now, when you look into the animal apocalypse and you look into the apocalypse of weeks, you're going to see something very interesting that happens in the 10th week. You're going to see, first of all, I'll go to one verse I did pull out was First Enoch 90 and 26. And the reason that's why I'm sitting over here in Esdras. I told you, man, preparedness is the key. But the reason this becomes of such importance is because this is where he begins talking about the former house being folded up and then another house being restored. And he talks about adding the nations to that house. That's good. Okay. So the reason that all of this comes into a nutshell here is because there's multiple books that mention a time that exists after the time that we could all agree is the first century AD. The judgment takes place there. And what was in the Dead Sea Scrolls, what they cannot take away, is that it said in First Enoch 10:12 that the great judgment would happen 70 generations from Enoch's. Well, they didn't know about the Dead Sea Scrolls, but somehow in Luke chapter 3, it records exactly 70 generations from Enoch to Jesus. Now, that alone is more than any of the mythological things that are being put before us that the world is asking us to believe about historical things. That we can prove archaeologically, scientifically, that this told the future. Now, if you're still not convinced, that's fine. But the question is, why does Enoch see a totality of generations whenever we talk about the 10th week and we talk about all the things pertaining to judgment, we're going to clearly see that it shows nations receiving the word of God after the time of the judgment and continuing on for many weeks in righteousness without any sorrow, without any tears, without any sin. All of the language that is in Revelation for the time that this would be. And it also implies that perhaps the traditional view of no more tears, no more pain is actually not being taken in the correct context. And so I'm going to suggest that the Bible doesn't have to mean anything but what it means. It does not need to be translated through our eyes. It needs to be translated through people who lived thousands and thousands of years ago's eyes and how
Okay,
they would have seen.
wait, so it doesn't have to be translated in our eyes?
What I'm saying here is we cannot just make it mean what we want it to mean. We have to look through the context, the cultural context, the linguistic context, and every other context that we're taught in hermeneutics to which it must apply. We cannot just pick it up in America and then say, well, this is what pain means to me. Therefore, I'm going to take this Americanized, westernized concept, and I'm going to insert that back into the Bible.
I know,
Some
because
people,
that's an indication that it doesn't apply. That is
no,
the
no, no,
what other
no.
indication do I need that? Okay, if that's not the case, then what other clue or indication do I need to show that that doesn't apply to us according to the language that we're processing?
Well, okay, good question, first of all. But when I read any historical document, I never fast forward it to 2025 and take words that are in it and give my own definition to it when it already had a clear definition in its context to the people it was written to first. So that's my answer to that in its most simple form. I hope that that can be, understood that way and received that way. Now, I think a good question is whenever we go to a book like Second Esdras, chapter 14, which I have pulled up right here, the last 5 verses of this, it talks about Ezra, the prophet, being given 70 books that were kept from anybody that was not wise. You got to really ask yourself this, because in the book of Second Esdras, as it's just starting out, he talks about how he sent prophets to all of his people. They all rejected it. And lo and behold, he says, hey, since you're doing this, I'm going to give my word to nations who will honor me, since you didn't want to, clearly distinguishing the Israelites from other nations. So whenever we look at that in its prophetic context, it's talking about a time where the nations would receive the word. And yes, I'm the first to admit, I will give a cherry to the people in IO for correctly pointing out that a lot of the times it says the word Gentile or nation, it is talking about the dispersed. Good job, bravo. But if that's all it's talking about, then we should not see books like one Enoch describing a time after the judgment where people are still being planted together in righteousness from other nations beginning at that point. And so that's in a nutshell, that's my entire argument against Israel only. And it's my entire proof that this is why the book of Enoch is relevant for today.
Okay, so again, really quickly, how does it apply to us? Say like where can I go to and say, look, that's where it's talking about us today in the 21st century. Namely, let's say America. We can even use Europe,
Why do we have
Africa.
to say why do we have to say America whenever it says that it was going to be planted together in righteousness for many weeks? Now, I will say one thing, and this may potentially throw a kink in preterism. I don't care. I don't care if it does or doesn't. I just care about the truth, and I'll tell you where it could possibly throw a kink in it. And I'll tell you why the church fathers believed that Christ had already returned, why they're writing all of the fiery language that was passed, and why they still looked for the world to end one day. And I think the reason that you're not given that is because it's in the book of Enoch. And a lot of people may not have chosen to debate from that book shortly after the time these church fathers were talking. So, but he seems to have seen a totality of generations. Now, you can go and do your own research on that. You can cross check anything I'm saying here. There's search archives. In fact, I was telling you right before we began this podcast, while you're over there trying to be sleek, that that some of the things I'd like to really have in front of me right now, I have in other notebooks, I have in other places, and that I'd like
Okay,
to
like,
really.
okay. So if I were, okay, let me just say this. Like, if I were to
Yeah.
say, how does the Constitution apply to us today? I can just easily just go right to it, and I could explain it so easily. So that's what I'm trying to say. Here you have this Hebraic book, and you have to do all of these verbal gymnastics and all of these long explanations. Why can't it just be so simple and so direct to say, look, it's this is where it's talking about us today, without having to give me archaeological
Well, sure.
findings, without having to give me linguistic scholars and all of these commentators, but it can just be just so easily just direct.
Well, sure. It says quite simply that in the new heavens and new earth, that it was going to come in the 10th week, the 7th day. Everybody on earth knows that that happened in the first century AD. There's no other reason. Well, not everybody on earth, but when we're having this discussion, and you can clearly see starting out in week 6, whenever the first temple's burned, everybody sees what portion of history we're in. When you start in week number 1, you can see when you're talking to Moses, you can see clearly week by week what he's describing here, to the point that it's not even arguable that what he's describing in the 10th week in this new heavens and new earth that would come is clearly only talking about a new covenant, nothing more,
All
because it
right. Now,
shows
how does that
people,
apply to us today?
well, because it shows people at that point being planted together with God's people in righteousness for many weeks undisturbed. Doesn't
All right.
say what will happen at the end of those weeks, but obviously,
Wait, hold on. It doesn't say what would happen at the end of those weeks.
no,
I know. It's nothing. I know. It
no,
shows
no, no,
nothing. So
no,
I granted to you that
no,
it's all about
no,
80, 70, but then what
no,
about
no.
after? Nothing.
Okay, no, no, no. First of all, that's the problem. That's what I need to say a little bit slower, in case anybody's missing this. The weeks I'm describing are after the 10th week, not during, after. This
Does
is
it state
after
that?
the arrival of the new heavens and new earth. It
Does it
clearly
state that?
says, huh?
But does it state that? Does it
Yeah,
state
yeah,
that what you're
sure, sure.
stating?
Absolutely. And watch this. That's why I said don't drag me on here whenever you're going to tell me when the mic's off, that we can just talk for now. Whenever I said I wanted to bring all of my notes to have this discussion, and then try to be slick while we're live and tell me to provide the specific verse, because that's not going to work either. But I would like you to please, if you would, give me some type of access to this to where I can upload these verses. I'll give them all clearly to you, because they say specifically, this nation right here was my nation. They rejected me. There's going to be a new heaven and new earth arrive in the 10th week. Guess what's going to happen then? It said that they were going to go undisturbed for many weeks. And guess what? That's exactly what we see going on today. You're bringing a 2,000 year old religion with a new interpretation here. There's not an Orthodox church on earth that interprets that any other way. Why did the apostles go and plant churches in Ethiopia if that's how they understood that? Why did they go plant churches in Egypt if they understood it this way? You're bringing a new interpretation to something that's been going on 2,000 years, sir, and it won't work.
Whose fault is that?
Probably ours, probably ours. Most
See,
likely
when how come why can't we criticize the intelligence of the designer who was supposed to make
of the
this message
designer.
so clear? It was supposed to make this message so clear to humanity. Why is it so esoteric? Why is it so arcane? Why is it so mysterious? Why is it such that even a small amount of people even know about this? It just seems to be very
I don't think it's a
unintelligent.
small
It
amount at
seems
all.
unintentional. That's it. I'm just saying, as a programmer, as a designer, that it just goes to show it's like he's playing a game or something like that. Only a very small people know about this.
Well, actually, if a very large number of people saw it, then the first thing you would say is that Jesus said only a few people was going to, therefore your book's false. So we can't do that. The book's true because only a few people see it, first of all, not false. That's not going to
Well,
work that way.
well, the thing is that you have billions of people who actually see the KJV. Billions of people actually see it. So you're talking about like those who find it, and then you're called for your chosen. It doesn't
Mm,
matter. It just means that you failed. I could just easily say, well,
how do
yeah, look how
you,
many billions of people know about it. Look how many
how do
billions
you,
of people. It just goes to show you proved them wrong. I
no,
could just easily
no,
say that.
No, no,
It's
no,
easy. That's why I just said it. That's how easy it is. I just said it.
no, no, no. Because again, let me repeat this again. I'm not talking about the verse that says few are chosen. I'm talking about the one that said that the road is a narrow one and very few find it. So what I'm saying is, if it did something otherwise in the world around us, we would be having this same conversation, and you would be asking me if only a few were supposed to find it, and this is your savior. Then how come so many people know about it? And you would just flip the question on me. That's not going to work. Let me repeat that slower. Jesus said only a few people were going to find it. So if he is true, and if he's the truth, then we can only expect that a few would find it. Period.
All right, but
That's
you're
what the
part
book
of that
says.
few. You're part of that few, right?
I hope so.
No, are you?
I hope
Because
so.
if you don't know, then I'm not gonna have. Why, if you have ambiguity in your identity and who you, where you stand, then why would I listen to anything if you don't even know? You're not even sure. Why would I listen to anything you have to say? I need some soundness. Are you? Yes or no?
Listen, man, I understand that you've got to say something to keep the conversation alive, but that
No, I'm
is
not.
not.
Listen, I'm asking
Look,
you a sincere question.
Jesus,
Are you?
they
Yes
tried
or
to do
no?
well, they tried to
This
do the
is.
same thing to Jesus, and he wouldn't testify of his own self. So if I'm his follower, I
Oh
won't
no,
do
no.
that
He
either.
testified of himself. I could show you where he says, "When you've seen me, you've seen that I am he whom the Father has sent." I could show you. So I'm
Okay.
asking you, do you have any assuredness in your identity and who you are in this very few selected number? It's been about
If I
20
walk the
seconds.
path, if I walk the path, then yes.
So yes,
If I choose not to, then no. It's up to me.
do you consider yourself part of the few? The many are
Yeah.
called, few are chosen. Yes, 100% are you the chosen? That's it. That's all I want to
I
know.
need grace, brother. I'm not gonna talk about myself. I mean, my whole life is in shambles as I speak. I have issues. I'm not perfect. I'm not Jesus.
All right, but you and but Paul wasn't Christ neither, but he at least had some assurance to say that he was saved, that he was the least of the apostles, but yet he was still an apostle. He was still able to self-identify and affirmative and confidently state with confidence that he is what he's claiming to be, that he is part of that few and that chosen. So that's why I'm asking you, and this is very important because why would I buy anything you're saying when you yourself don't even know and you're unsure and you're rocky in your own identity in this entire message?
Well, because then you're putting your faith in the man, me. You don't need to have faith in me,
You're the
brother.
mouth. You're the one who's carrying on the mission. I can't go up and see the invisible spirit. You're the
Actually,
mouthpiece.
actually, I ain't gonna go there.
Really?
That's another
I
conversation,
can't.
man.
I
Hey,
can't. I
hey,
can't.
I ain't gonna get sidetracked on that one, but I'm gonna say there are people, and I'm not saying that this is the way to prove it, but there are
Well,
people who have.
I'm gonna say affirmatively with confidence that you're not part of that chosen. That you're not. That you may think that. Well, you don't even know. You're kind of ambivalent, but I'm gonna say with 100,000% sure you're not part of that chosen. That's what I'm gonna say. And that
I'm
what
not
you're
really
and that what you're
concerned.
and that what you're
I'm
saying
not,
is just
this
another
this has
religious.
nothing to, yeah, but this has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not. Okay, first of all, do
It
do
does
you
have
believe
something.
do you believe in God? First of
Does have
all,
something to do with you. You're the one who's delivering this message, and as the messenger, you have to be accountable. You have to be accountable if you're going to be a representative of this invisible deity. You have to be accountable as a man of God, right?
show me that in the
You don't
verse.
have to be accountable. You don't have to live a life above reproach.
Oh,
You don't
sure. I
have to.
mean, that's what
Okay,
the
so
goal is. But
ministers of Christ
whether,
don't
but
have to be
what I'm saying is whether I do or don't, that has nothing to do with why this document dated 300 BC knew exactly when the temple was going to fall. You have no answer for that.
Okay, I
That's
granted
prophecy
it. I
fulfillment.
know I do have an answer. I granted it was a supernatural event and it was prophecy and it happened and it was 100%, 1000% accurate. I grant that to you. Okay. Now, how does that apply to us today?
We are in the weeks that would continue in righteousness.
What happens in the weeks?
What do you mean? Salvation.
What happens? How
Salvation
does
of
that?
the soul. Salvation of the soul.
Okay.
What is there to not be excited about there? What other hope do you have? I'll let you go there. What hope do you have aside from Jesus Christ beyond this grave that we all face? What hope do you have?
Go ahead. You're gonna come back? Yeah. What hope do I have?
Yeah, please explain that.
Even I don't know if I have any hope. I don't have any hope beyond the grave. And that's okay. And that's fine with me. I'm happy with that. And I'm content. And that's why I'm going to live the best life that I can possibly
Okay.
live in this life because my life means something. And I'm not going to store up my treasures in heaven where moth and rust can destroy. I'm going to store up my treasures here in this life. And I'm going to leave something for my friends and my family members because this
Mm,
life matters 1,000%. Your doctrine teaches that this life doesn't really matter. It's but a vapor, vanity of vanities, all of vanities, that this we're just
Tell me,
passing
no, no,
through.
no.
We're just
Show me
pilgrims
a
passing
scripture.
through. It's all about eternity. That's what your doctrine teaches.
Okay, now
And I'm
show me that
saying,
in the
no,
Bible.
you should make this life the
Show
best
me
life.
that.
And that's what we should be teaching children. That's what I should be telling these students.
Mm,
Now don't squander it for a
Now I'm
myth.
going to come back, and I'm going to come back right now, and I'm going to ask you to show in Scripture where my doctrine teaches that, and I'm going to hold you accountable since you said that.
No, as a Christian,
No, no,
your
no,
treasure.
not what you're interpreting my position as, but what it says in Scripture, because you haven't heard of my doctrine. You're just saying things that I never said.
Are you a
You're
Christian?
saying your opinion. Yeah, you're saying your opinion of my doctrine.
No,
You
no,
show
no,
me
no.
in the state where I said
Are
that.
you
You can't do
are
that.
you a Christian?
You're talking about your opinion of what I
No, no,
believe.
no,
You're
no,
not
no,
talking
no.
about anything I
Okay,
said.
I'm asking again. Are you a Christian?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did Christ say to put your treasures in this life or up in heaven?
In heaven. Now, interpret what that means accurately.
Did James state that this life is but a vapor?
Okay. You can pull
Okay.
cherry pick as many of those as you like. Show me the
Okay,
proof.
and should I be placing my values and my goals in the eternal realm, where my soul goes, or should I be living my life here and be focused things here on the
You
earthly?
see, okay, now I see the problem. See, the problem is you are separating me living my life now from my treasures in heaven. And that's where the problem steps in. There is absolutely nothing in the
Well,
text.
what has more
Or
emphasis?
hold on,
There you
wait,
go.
wait.
That's what it is.
There's nothing in my belief system. There's nothing in the text that says that you're not making the best of the time you have right here by putting your treasures in heaven. And that's
No,
where the error sets in.
you're doing it for God. You're not doing it for yourself. You're doing
Okay.
it for whatever the commandments is. And so that's what I'm trying to say. What has more eternal value? What has more value, this life on earth or the one in heaven? Which one do you place more emphasis on? Which one?
Well, it's kind of both because you're determining
No,
what
it's not.
happens.
No,
No, no, wait, wait,
no,
wait.
no,
Let
no,
me, let me finish.
this is why Christians
Let,
martyred. This
let
is
me,
why
let me
Christians
finish.
were getting martyred because they knew that up in heaven it was more valuable. That's why they were willing to die a torturous death because they knew
Isn't that
that heaven is.
interesting? Isn't that interesting? How a whole group of people would say that they saw someone alive after death and be willing to die for it and it be a lie.
Wait, say that again.
Isn't it interesting how an entire group of people would die knowing whether or not they saw the Christ alive after his death and would purposefully die on that
Yeah,
testimony?
other
Hold on,
religions
hold on,
do that
let
too.
me finish my question. Let me finish my question.
Go ahead.
Isn't it interesting that they would all choose death if they didn't have some valid proof of the fact that they were laying up their treasures in heaven for a better eternal purpose than what you're
Yeah,
describing?
yeah. Tell that to the Muslims and tell that to the monks who light themselves on fire. Tell that to all the other religions that kill themselves for
You
their
know the
religious
difference?
purpose. It's all faith. It's all faith.
Do you know the
It's all faith.
difference? Do you know the difference?
Yeah, there's a theological difference. Yeah. For the Muslims, you get like 70 virgins. For other religions, you get other rewards. There's a rewarding factor. There's a difference. There's nuances.
Okay.
There's a difference.
Now, that's not the type of difference I was talking about, but I mean, I hear what you're saying.
That is a
But let me
difference. That is a
describe
difference.
that's a difference. But let me describe in context the kind of difference I'm talking about. The difference is Muslims do not know whether they're dying for a lie or not. The apostles did. That's the
No, they
difference.
didn't. No, they
Yes, they
didn't.
did. They knew they didn't know whether they saw the Christ alive after death. They
No,
didn't
because I
know.
believe
They
it's
didn't know
myth.
whether that was a
No,
lie.
because I believe it's myth. You're taking this as a literal story. I believe it's myth. So they were
You believe
liars.
it's myth whenever the Ark of Titus is still there commemorating the destruction of the temple. You granted there was prophecy fulfillment. Now it's myth.
No,
Which one is it?
I'm not talking about the temple being destroyed. I'm talking about the resurrection of Christ and then
Okay,
seeing
okay.
him. I believe it's myth.
Now let's
It's different.
backtrack because
It's
you
different.
accept that the temple was destroyed because we have memorabilia from Titus destroying it. Do you not? Okay.
Yeah,
Why was
Titus
the temple
destroyed.
destroyed? Did it have anything to do with Christianity? Come on, man. We can
Christianity,
back,
Christianity
we
was
can go back.
involved. Yeah, it was involved.
Okay. So back to the original question. How did Christianity spread? We're back to the apostles again.
It
So,
spread through oral tradition.
okay. Now,
It
oral
spread through oral
tradition
tradition.
from
How else
who?
do you think it spread?
From who?
From from the apostles and those who started
Okay.
believing, from the entire, from
Oh,
all the churches. They
okay.
started just talking about it, just like all other phenomena, religious phenomena. It happens through mouth.
Amen. So back to the question, since you're now on the page that the apostles' lives were not myths, how could they have possibly said that they died for something that they saw and they knew whether they saw it or not, and it be a lie if they didn't have proof by that sight of their putting their treasures in heaven? They were willing to die for it, and they knew whether they were lying. A whole group of people would die for a lie on purpose. I don't believe it.
Yes, because there are people who are dying today for something that they never saw. Christians who are dying today based on their faith, and yet they never saw the apostles, they never saw Christ. That's how powerful religion is. That's how powerful that delusion can be. That you would
Oh, I
die
believe it.
and watch your family members die in front of you so that you don't recant your faith. That is how powerful religion is to the human psyche. You see this with jihad, Muslims who kill themselves for the sake of their religion. You see monks who light themselves on fire. You know, that's how powerful religion is. But
I
really quickly,
agree.
we have Lily here. Lily has a question here. She says, "What treasures do we get in heaven?" She says the Bible doesn't even tell us what heaven is going to be like, except there's no marriage. We know hardly anything. This life is the only thing that we are sure of. And I would have to say yes. It's the only thing that we can take out faith and say, I know for a fact that I'm real. Now, if you want to get into hyper skepticism, like how do I know I'm not in a dream world like the Matrix or something like that? That's something different. But for the most common sense foundational reality, I am real, you're real. I'm going to treat you like you're real. I'm going to treat myself like I'm real. You have feelings, I have feelings, pain, happiness, all that stuff. So that's, I know for a fact that I'm conscious. And I think, therefore I am Rene Descartes. That is, we know for a fact. Our starting point, David, is not the Bible. Our starting point is consciousness. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Our starting point in this entire thing is not the Bible. Our starting point is consciousness. The fact that we are conscious and we are alert and we're aware. Okay, it is not the book that we have to learn to read, learn the alphabet, hear it, and over to become indoctrinated. Consciousness is our beginning.
Hey, I need to stop you for a second. What was the comment you were making before you started asking what she was saying and everything else? Because I never got a chance to reply to you, and I have a really good short-term problem
Yeah,
in my
it's
memory.
real simple. It's real simple. How does it apply to us today? Even if I granted to you that it prophesied about 70 AD supernaturally, okay, great. I want to see how that is applied to us today in the 21st century in our government, our morals, our ethics, our culture, our society. Let's just talk about America since let's bring it relative to us. We're audience relevance, okay? Let's bring it relative to our audience today. How does it apply to America?
Okay, I'll repeat my question. Can you bring me back to the comment you made before you read her comment? Can you somehow rewind it? Because I had something I really wanted to say to that. You know, instead of just continuing to to go on, I really had something I wanted to say there.
Say it again. What was it?
It was before you read her comment. You were saying something, and I really wanted to reply to it. I was trying to write the note, and I was like, dang, I can't remember what he said. But
Let
anyway,
me see. Let me see. We were talking about. Let me see if I could go back my memory.
please, if you can remember. Um,
Oh
but
yeah,
we
you
were
were saying
oh,
that I was
the
making
religion,
assumptions.
religion. Okay, look,
Yeah.
I did want to say something about that.
Okay.
Um, because I agree, I agree totally that religion is powerful, and I believe that people die all the time in the name
Yeah.
of religion, and I believe that they do so thinking that they're doing the right thing. And I agree with that 1,000%. But that was not the context of my statement. The context of my statement was that the difference is between those dying in the name of religion today and those people. And let me tell you something. The Jews, all they had to do is never talk about Jesus. But if you go search their literature, they do not only admit that he lived, but they admit that he did miracles. They just attribute it to Satan. If you go read the Talmud, They plainly admit Jesus did miracles. So we're not in a mythological thing. There was a real man. He really lived. His name was Jesus. It's one of the most provable things in the world
Is he the
that he
only
really
religious
did
figure
miracles.
that did miracles?
But see, you're trying to deny the resurrection. That means you accept that he existed. Then you
Is
say
he
it was
the
wrong.
only religious figure that resurrected?
Is he
Is he
the
the only
only
religious
religious
figure? Is he the
figure?
only religious figure that was born of a virgin? No, he wasn't. It was actually there was figures before him, as a matter of fact, that was born of a virgin,
Prove
that
it.
resurrected, that did miracles.
Prove it.
Do you know Romulus? Do you know Zalimoxis? Do you know Osiris? Have you studied other myths and other religions?
Okay, first of all, let me explain something.
This is
These were
academia, by the way. I'm not pulling this out of my rear end. I could look at this and I could use archaeology just like you. I can use history just like you. I can use any tenet of academia
but you
to
cannot
prove that there were
prove.
other religious myths that had already done this and already identified themselves as a deity, as a son of God, before Christ even came onto the scene.
All right, so is it my turn?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll
All right,
mute
cool.
myself.
So first of all, using the faulty dating methods that scholars use today, you cannot prove the oldest anything. You cannot go to the Sumerian tablets and say that they're older. You do not have anything to base that on other than a faulty principle stating that the oldest known copy of something establishes the time of its writing. If that's true, then we do not have the histories of Julius Caesar because we do not have a single copy of it for hundreds of years. And that does not establish when it was written. That is a faulty dating principle. Now, go on from the dating principle. Let's go on to these other myths. Let's look. Were these people stargazers? Yes or no? Were they receiving the information that they got when they made these myths from the stars? Yes or no? This only proves that God wrote the gospel in the stars all along. Why you have a Virgo virgin with a baby coming out between her legs in the stars, brother? That proves God wrote it. I don't
Okay,
need these.
even if I grant it that everything is correct, that he was born of a virgin, he resurrected, that he claimed to be the Son of God, even if I granted that that is correct, you're a full preterist. You believe that he returned in 70 AD, right?
That's much more nuanced than that, but
Just,
uh,
I know, but just make it simple, okay? I understand you're very smart, you're very insightful in full preterism. I'm no dummy or rookie in this Bible business, so let's just make it as simple as possible. You believe he returned in 70 AD, correct?
I believe that the return he spoke of has already taken place.
Okay, so that's correct, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay,
I mean,
all right.
yeah, I disagree with him about a lot of stuff, but yeah, pretty much.
And so therefore, by default, 99.9% of all of Christians have been delusional. Is that yes or no? They've been delusional to wait for the return of Christ. They've been delusional in their hermeneutic. Yes or no? All the scholars, everyone, they've been delusional.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that the New Testament said that deceiving and being deceived would only get worse. And so
Okay,
if
well,
we're
they
looking
think you're
for,
delusional.
can I,
They will state that you're delusional to state that he returned in 70 AD. So I'm asking you, do you think that they are delusional to wait for him? And do you think they're delusional when they're reading the text and they're still waiting for that? I'm going to say, yes, they're delusional. I'm going to say the full preterists are delusional. And I'm going to say that the futurist Christians are delusional. And I'm going to say that with confidence.
just because you
So
say
do you
something with
believe, are
confidence,
you
don't
with
make it
me as a
true.
skeptic? Do you side with me that Christianity is delusional? 99.9% of all Christians are delusional. Do
No, I don't
you
think they're
side with
delusional.
me? Oh,
Uh,
so they're in right doctrine. They're not delusional. So then they're waiting for the return of Christ, and they're correct. They're
no, I didn't
correct
say
to
that
wait.
either.
Okay,
I
so
didn't.
when you're
Mhm.
wrong in your theology and you're teaching people this and you're getting money off of it and you're getting as a ministry off of it and you're scaring people for the rapture and the end times, that's not delusion. What other than criteria would you use to showcase that something is delusional? What other criteria then?
How would you define delusional?
Goodness gracious. Do I have to look it up? Do you think Pentecostals are delusional? The tongue talking, all that? You think that's delusional?
I don't think it's reality, but I think they believe what they're doing. Uh,
Okay, let's look up what
I think
delusional
there's
means here.
probably, I think
Because,
there's other ways you
like
could,
I said, delusional meaning.
I think there's
Okay,
other ways you could put that though.
delusional means. Oh, right here. Look, right here. See, look. Delusional. Here's the meaning: characterized by holding false beliefs or judgment about external reality. Can you use restroom? Go ahead. External reality that are held despite of incontrovertible evidence to the contrary as a symptom of serious mental illness. That's another definition, but here's the first definition: characterized by holding false beliefs or judgments about an external reality. So I'm going to ask you again, okay? Do I have to pull up other
No, 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 no,
definitions?
no, no,
Do
no.
I
But
have to pull up the
I
Greek?
would
Do I
like,
have to pull up the Hebrew? Do I have
I
to pull
would
up?
only, I would
Okay,
only
that's
like
what
to
I'm trying to
point out,
say.
I
Just,
would
you just,
only,
okay, go ahead.
I would only like to point out that by that definition, we are all delusional. That's
Not
all I would
me,
like to say to that.
not me.
You're
Include
delusional,
yourself
yes,
into
you
that,
are,
not me.
because
No,
that
I'm not.
means if you believe anything about God that's not true, you're delusional,
I'm not
and that means
delusional.
I'm delusional, and you're delusional, and we're all delusional. So I'm not going to
I'm
characterize a certain Christian as being delusional when I am certain that I'm not right about everything either. There's something I'm
That's why
delusional about.
that's why you know why? That's why I categorize myself as a skeptic, because that is a humble approach. I categorize myself as an agnostic, meaning I'm not sure, I don't know. That's a humble approach because I'm
It
not going
is.
to stick my chin out there and be like, I know for a fact. I'm not going to do that. So that's why I'm a neutralist on this in a sense. So
That's
that's a
humble.
humble approach. That's why,
True.
and to me, you can't really do much with an agnostic or a skeptic because we're on a journey. And but I can use deduction and I can use common sense based upon academia that we can all learn from and we all have access to. But again, I'm going to ask you once again: do you believe that 99.9% of Christians all throughout history and even right now that they're holding false beliefs and that
We
they're
all
over
do.
here, huh?
100,000 times, yes, we all do. That was
Okay,
my
so they're
answer.
delusional. So
But
they're
we, everybody,
delusional.
everybody. I'm not excluding Christians. That's everybody on earth. Nobody knows everything but God. That means we're all delusional and we're all trying to
Okay.
seek and we're all on a journey. We're
Do you have a
all
family?
agnostic.
Do you have a
We're all
family?
agnostic. We're all
Do you have a
agnostic to a
family?
degree.
Do you have a
Huh?
family?
Absolutely.
Do you love them?
Hmm.
Is your love delusional?
I have no idea what you just said.
Okay. You said that we're all delusional. I'm saying no, I'm not.
Oh,
Speak for
you're talking
yourself.
about you're changing the context. Well,
No,
listen,
I'm not. No, I'm not. In
let's
what
not worry
areas of
about.
my life? Please tell me what areas of my life you can now you can roast me. What areas of my life am I delusional in? Because you said
Let
that
me
I'm
see.
delusional, and I'm saying no, I'm
Okay,
not delusional.
I'll tell you how
You
you're
said that
delusional.
you're delusional, and I think that there are parts of your life, your religious life, where you're delusional. I think that that is.
Mm.
I'm going to firmly say that.
I'll tell you one way you're delusional off the top. You just affirmed that you were going to grant it that scriptures were divinely inspired, and then you said you did not know. That's delusional.
Wait, say it again.
You said that you were going to grant it that the temple destruction was prophetically fulfilled, and then you
That
said
doesn't
you
mean I
didn't.
concede to it. You know what grant means? It means I grant it for the sake of wasting my time. I'm granting it for the sake of argument. That's what
Okay,
I'm
but
doing. I
okay,
grant it.
but
I
wait a
don't
minute.
concede to it. I don't concede to it. I just grant it. I say, okay, let's just say if you're right, because there's another one, two, three that I like to get to. That's what that means.
But let's go back though, because
I didn't
we were.
even warrant it. I didn't even say it was a warranted belief. I just said I'll just go ahead and grant it to you. I
That's
didn't
fine.
say I concede to it. I didn't say I
Okay,
give warrant to it. I just said I granted it. That's it.
that's fine. Then I'll retract that statement. Now back to this. Then, if the temple really stood, the temple really fell,
Mhm.
in the book of Enoch, we have a copy of it 300 BC that said precisely which generation it would fall. I want you to explain how a person that, because that's when you said I grant it, when I told you to explain how that's possible.
Yeah. How that's possible? I don't know. I don't believe in prophecy, but let's say if it was a supernatural event and it did take place, I go, okay, I go, fine, it did. Now, how does that apply to us today? How does that at all apply to America? How does that apply to our government, our politics, our
Mm,
social constructs, our education system, our culture? How does that apply to us today? And I'm
okay,
asking you, what verses can I go
we're,
to? What verses can I go to in Enoch and say, look, that's talking about us, everyone. Let's expect to experience something. Let's expect something here. What passages do I go to? Then when I ask you, I get this long, like roundabout of archaeology and you know, just where can I just go to in this book, in this little book that even most Christians don't even know about? And you go to it and you go, look, that's talking about us today, and it applies to us in some sense. And what's that sense? You go, oh, salvation. Like, well, you can toss that book out because there's other books that talk about salvation, and not just in Christianity,
no, you cannot
not just
toss a
in
book
Christianity.
out that you're whenever a book is. First of all, when you're an author and you're writing a book, you have a narrative. Okay. First of all, Ezra was told to keep 70 books back. Why? For the wise. How come Ethiopia didn't receive that? Because it said in Psalms that people from Sheba was going to come bring gifts to the Messiah. So they had to have access to the book of Enoch the whole time. Now, if the book of Enoch was going to tell you the exact generation the temple would fall, and the Jerusalem Jews were supposed to play right into this narrative to where it would fall, then they wouldn't be able to know that. So that's why he told them to keep 70 books back. That's the answer. Now, you're avoiding the question.
I'm not
I
avoiding
asked
it.
you, no, no, yes, you are. I said, we have a copy of Enoch, 300 BC. It prophesied the exact generation the temple would fall. And I ask you to explain how that's possible. Saying that you don't believe in prophecy as a response is no response.
I just
It
said I
did, it
granted it to you.
did.
I already said, okay, fine.
Don't
Okay,
grant
so
it.
what?
Concede it. Concede
Okay,
it. I
so it
didn't.
did. Okay, okay,
Okay.
fine. So okay, I agree that it was prophetic and that it was accurate. Therefore, now I can say that all other religions and their prophecies
What
are now
prophecy?
accurate as
Show
well
me.
because they're not the only ones that's making prophecy. Prophecy did not
Show
originate
me.
from the Hebrews. Prophecy did not originate from the Hebrews. I'm going to say it again. Prophecy did not originate from the Hebrews. So if I'm going to be fair and grant it to you and concede to your religion, then I'm going to do it to all the other ones as well because prophecy is not just in Christianity. And now, what Christians are going to say is, well, that's because the devil's at work and demons are in these other religions and these psychics, which you're familiar with. You were sharing with me on Facebook all this supernatural demonic activity, which goes against the paradigm of full preterism that
No, I don't.
demons were destroyed and
No, I
Satan
don't.
was destroyed in 70. You're
No, I
going
don't.
right against Don Preston. You're
No, I
going
don't.
against Don Preston. Yeah,
No,
you
man.
are.
No, I'm
You
not.
are going against Don.
No,
Don
man.
said
No,
that
man.
there's no demons. He said
Oh
that. Are
well,
you aware of this?
if he said that, then I'm just going against whoever's concept that is. I don't care if it's
Hey,
Don. I don't care who it is.
you're not surpassing him. You are not, you
Okay.
have no authority to even question Don. He's the leading
Authority.
voice, the author
Who
of
has
over 30
authority?
books.
Who has
You have,
authority? When did Don say he had authority? Show me a video where Don said
he
he
has
had authority.
academic, he has academic. Well, I'm glad you said that
I
because
don't
in my
care. Tell
debate
me
with, I'm
no,
glad
no.
you said that. Oh, excuse me. I'm glad you said that because in my debate with Don, I asked him and I even said, this is historical. Are you surpassing Max King? Anybody who watched the debate, just go to the super chat question. I asked Don, are you surpassing Max King? Because you're believing in full preterism that didn't
You're
originate from
going a
you.
different
You have J.
direction.
Stewart Russell. Hold on, wait. You have J. Stewart Russell. You have J. Stewart
I don't
Russell,
care about all that. I don't
and
care
you have
about
Max.
people. We're talking about
If
the word
they're
of
the
God. I
ones
don't
who
care
taught
about Don
you,
and William or
they're
none
the
of that.
ones
Like,
who
this is
taught
not
you that.
relevant. You tell me why this is relevant for this. I'm going to tell you, show me why a person's opinion is relevant to anything. It's not.
I'm going to
It's
tell
just
you
their
why.
opinion.
Okay, okay. I'm going to tell you why. Because number
It's
one,
not. It's
Don
not.
is the author of over 30 books.
I don't
He
care.
is the number one
I don't
debater.
care. I don't care. That does not
I mean,
mean
I
that he
know you
knows.
don't care. I know you don't care.
But it does not mean that he has studied any of these other scriptures. And he hasn't. I know he hasn't because I've spoken and spoken with him
Oh, I
about this.
know. Oh, trust me, I know the errors of his theology,
He,
but you're
he
identified as his theology. Though. That's
now
the
hold
thing is
on.
you're
Wait,
part of
wait a
his
minute.
group. You're part of
If
his
a
group.
but I'm just going to say that if a person is not careful to consider all things whenever they're looking at something, they can easily make a mistake. I'm going to ask you this though: Jesus cast out devils seemed to be one of the central focuses of his mission.
Yeah.
Now, if you are telling me that no more pain and suffering is limited to physical tears, then I'm going to tell you that you're wrong for interpreting it that way. And if you're telling me that it has to mean that there was no more devils because they were cast into fire, Enoch said that they were going to be cast into fire at that time. Well, obviously they're still here.
So
So
it
what is
failed.
it?
Yeah, it
So
failed.
no.
It
No,
wasn't
you're
fulfilled.
interpreting what it has to mean. Obviously,
No,
it doesn't mean what you're saying it means, or they wouldn't still be
can
here.
you at least can you at least see where my mind and
Yeah,
so
sure,
many
yeah.
other minds would go there? Can you at least say where our mind that is natural to calculating and making deductions? That when you say, well, it was prophesied that the devil and his angels would be cast to lake of fire and be destroyed, but it didn't happen.
No. It does not
Or
say
it goes,
destroyed.
well, then it failed. Can you at
It
least
don't
see
say destroyed.
where intelligent people, common sense people, even a dumb person could actually see that and go, well, that's because it didn't happen because it failed. And
Okay,
that's
now
why
show
Christianity
me.
has been waiting for it to happen. That's why Christianity has been waiting for it to happen. You know that Christianity doesn't view you as a full preterist, as a Christian,
I
because
don't
of
care.
this.
I don't care. I don't care what any. All I'm talking about is back to the demons. Okay, there is okay. It shows the Antichrist being thrown in the fire. Oops, John of Gischala was taken alive, but he was still cast into the fire. Okay, so you're making cast into the fire mean your definition of it. All I'm saying is it's evident by them still being here, by people still doing occult practices and summoning Satan, whatever you want to call it. Yes, I know there's plenty of deities they're calling on. We just call that Satan. Okay, it's obvious, it's manifest by all of the occultism in the world today that being thrown into the fire does not mean what many people think it means. That's all I'm saying.
That's what I'm trying to say. So therefore, you have to say that Christianity, its theologians, its scholars, its representatives have been delusional. I just want an affirmative really quickly. Do you believe they're
Look,
delusional?
I'll concede that.
Okay. So therefore, did God send forth that strong delusion that they should believe a lie in Second
He
Thessalonians?
said
Is
that he
that God?
would. He said that he
Huh?
would. He said that
Okay.
he would.
All right. So, but you're not delusional. But then you
Hell,
say
about
that you are
something. I gotta
delusional.
be
You
delusional
see,
about
that's what I'm trying to say.
something.
You're going back and forth. You see what I'm saying? So it's like
But wait,
you
wait,
said
no,
that
no,
you're
no, because I
delusional.
have already conceded that I'm delusional. You're going back
Okay.
to it as if I
If you're
didn't say that
delusional,
earlier.
hold on, wait. If you're delusional, then why the hell should I believe anything about your delusional exegesis? You just stated
Because
that
you're
you're
delusional
delusional, man.
also.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm
By
not
my
delusional.
definition, you're
No,
delusional.
you want me to be delusional. You want me to be like you, but I'm not.
Oh, you're the all non-delusional human being that's left. Man, what should we do from
No, I
here?
know plenty of
We should
people. I
stack
know
all
plenty of
our riches
people.
on this earth and hope that there's nothing afterwards. Otherwise, we're all screwed. That's your best option.
No, that doesn't mean I'm delusional. What it means is I don't know, and I'm not going to be delusional and make a false belief that when I die I'm going to go be with Jesus and sit on his lap and kiss him in the face like how you believe. So at the end of the day, like I said before, when you make that claim that you're delusional, which I hope you never make again, then you just discredit yourself from any type of
Yes, man.
processing, any type of information conveyance, anything that you
But
say. I just go, this is coming from a self-proclaimed delusional person.
yeah, sure.
That's what I'm saying.
So
You shouldn't have
okay,
said
so
that.
that's fine because of we've already.
Imagine if Paul said that.
I get,
Imagine if
yeah,
Paul said,
I
I'm
get.
delusional, everyone.
Hold on,
Imagine if
I get.
Jesus said, I'm delusional.
Hold on. Well, wait a minute. So if a person wants to take and edit anything I've said out of this and make a funny meme, I
I'm
grant
not.
it, they can do it. But
I'm
if
not.
they follow the whole conversation, and I get you have little cute debate tactics that you use, that's fine. I don't
Not a
care. I love
tactic,
it.
man. Dude, I'm in a classroom right now. I'm the one that said just hop on right now. This is not a tactic. I'm
And by,
organic and I'm as authentic as I would be in person. I'm
and by
not, there's not
the
a
way,
tactic. I don't
and
have
by the
like a
way,
list of tactics.
and by the way, what are you in class for?
Right now we're celebrating a Halloween. It's just a chill day today. So that's why I'm here.
Celebrating Halloween. So you
Yeah.
celebrate something that's based on a myth? Would you call that delusional?
Oh, I'm not celebrating it. You're asking what the class is doing. Actually, as a matter of fact, no, because I look at this as human anthropology, like it's like a fairy tale, and I'm gonna go out and have fun tonight, and I'm not gonna be delusional. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna have fun, and I know this is all just a bunch of fairy tale stuff anyway, just like what most humans believe too. If I were to go ask these students right now, like, hey, do you believe all this stuff, like the ghosts and spirit? They may say yeah, some may say no, but we're not gonna. It's just an event to have a fun time, to dress up and look hot and look beautiful
Well,
and to
you
have fun. That's all
you're
we're gonna do.
talking you're talking to a person who was ritually abused by Satanists as a child, and I know for a fact that it's real. So I don't even need to go there. That's a totally other conversation. I don't even talk about this a lot publicly. But yes, I suffered ritual abuse as a kid. Okay, so
It's
I'm
terrible. I'm
already
sorry.
yeah. It's bigger than people dressing up at Halloween. This is way bigger than that. There's a lot
Hey,
of
look at this. Shane C. He goes, this discussion makes me want to dance in the streets. I love it, Shane. Just
Hey,
keep just keep bringing that up.
I saw the hilarious AI video. By the way, I
Oh
thought it
yeah.
was freaking funny. There was other people that believe what I do. They didn't think it was so funny. I said, I don't care. I think it's freaking funny. Someone was just trying to come in good humor. They were not trying to be offensive. They were just. It was funny. It was freaking funny, man.
It's funny, but it's also accurate. That's the whole thing, is that
You
that
know,
is exactly to the T what he stated that he was real sure of. He said,
What
I'm
did he
real
wait,
sure that
wait, wait. I didn't listen to the whole debate, and you might have to, but listen, I would love to do a lot more preparedness, and I would like to draw some things out, which I think they've been working on for years. Actually, I think William and Don's done a pretty good job at showing that the
no, they
context.
haven't. No, they
Hold
haven't.
on.
That's why we
Let me
exposed them.
finish. Let me finish. I think they've done a terrific job at pointing out. I'll give you an example. How William was talking about them hanging up their harps, and they didn't want to sing the songs of Zion because they were in captivity, and that
Wow.
this was. And whenever you talk about Revelation, what is it? What does Revelation say it is? It says it's a book of signs. Signs point to other things. So whenever it points to 1,000 years, it's not talking about 1,000 years. When it points to a mark, we don't have to think this is talking about some kind of mark. We don't have to do that because it says that it's a book written in symbols. So for you to take dancing in the streets out as literal just shows me that you haven't read the book thoroughly.
No, no, you guys, you haven't even watched the debate. That's how ridiculous this is.
I
Because
need
if you
to. I
watched,
need to.
no, you didn't. I know. So that's why you shouldn't be so impetuous and hasty to speak when you didn't even hear the statements, and you didn't even watch the debate, and you didn't
That's
even
fine.
hear his statements to Richard Carrier or myself. I asked
Mhm.
you. Let me tell you this. I
Mhm.
asked on in a literal sense, how did the saints experience? How did the living saints experience the covenantal change, the restored fellowship, the resurrection of Christ? How did they experience that cognitively in their minds, ontologically in their brains? He already knew this question months before because I was hitting him up on Standing for Truth. He had
Good question.
stated, and excuse me, he had stated in a literal sense that when the Roman soldiers besieged Jerusalem, literally, that when they saw that and there was a spiritual transformation in their minds, that they were all rejoicing and dancing in the streets. And he said, I am real sure. Twice he stated, I'm real sure. How else do you express assuredness by not stating that you're real sure? So don't tell me he wasn't really sure. That's what you full preterists like to do. You don't even watch the debate. You don't even read his books. You don't even care enough to do your homework. And then you want to say, oh, he really didn't mean what he said. He said, I'm real sure. If I were to say, hey, did you cheat on your wife? I'm real sure I did. Did you rob the bank? I'm real sure I did. Did you punch that person in the face? I'm real sure. So when you're on the stand and you're making history for your ministry, the full preterist movement, against a leading atheist, a world-class atheist, and you state something like, I'm real sure. Now, do I have to say, are you real sure? Or are you real sure? Oh, for a second there, I thought you were real sure. Oh, no, no, I wasn't real sure. I was real sure. So I got to
Okay.
say it 1,000 times in order for me to state that I'm. Did you know that he stated that he was real sure? Do you know that came out of his mouth?
I mean, listen. I
Do
get.
you know that that came out of his mouth?
Oh
That he
no,
said he
I
was
don't.
real sure. I know. So don't
I
tell
don't
me, because like I said, I spent thousands of dollars for that debate. So
yeah.
don't tell me that, well, he really didn't mean it when you didn't even do your homework and you don't even read his books.
Okay. So if I don't read his books and you're talking about his authority, then how are you sitting here talking to me? How did I come to the same conclusion
Did
without
you
hid
have you
indoctrination?
debate what have you done
Wait,
for full
wait, wait,
preterism?
wait.
What have you
Do what?
done for full preterism? What have you done for okay? Let's see what have you done for the movement?
You can search. You can search the archives if you like.
You haven't done anything historical compared to what
Okay.
Don did. Not
I don't
compared to
care.
Don.
I don't
Not
care.
compared to Don. That's why we call him the Don. Like the
I
Godfather, right? That's what we
didn't
call
know
him.
you were
But you're
calling
not.
me
I mean this all respect. I mean this all
that.
respect. You nobody. No, not even William Bell. Nobody has done what Don did. He debated Michael Brown and he debated Richard Carey. He brought the full preterist movement to a world-class level. He made history for this movement. He surpassed
That's
Max
good.
King.
I
Okay,
would
so you're
never.
not on his level in any way. You have no
I would
authority
never.
to rebuke him.
I
You're
would
not even on
never.
Sam Frost. You can't
I don't.
even touch with
I
Sam
don't care.
Frost.
I don't care. I'm not provoked by stuff like this. I'm very happy for the
I'm
things
not
Don's
trying to provoke
accomplished.
you. I'm trying to
I
tell you the
don't care,
truth
but
that
let
you
me
are
finish what I'm
not.
saying. I'm very happy for the things that Don's accomplished. That's awesome. Matter of fact, I think if you look into an encyclopedia right now, his name is in there under full preterism. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. That doesn't mean he's right about everything, but that's pretty cool. Now I want to show
Okay.
you something.
No, that's not pretty cool. That establishes his academic authority. It would
Authority?
he would be like
No,
the
no, it
Muhammad
does
Ali.
not. No, it
He
does
would
not.
be like the Muhammad Ali. That's like saying, "Oh,
Nobody
I don't care
has
about Muhammad Ali. I
authority.
don't care about Floyd Mayweather. I don't care about freaking George Foreman. I don't care about Lennox Lewis. I don't care about all the legends. I don't care about all the Hall of Famers. I'm in my own little boxing gym, in my own local gym. I'm the
Yeah.
champion of my own little gym. But when you go to the world
Nobody's a
class
champion.
level, you're not. I'm just
Nobody's
trying
a
to tell you,
champion.
huh?
Okay, nobody's a champion. Okay, so um, hey, I gotta talk to me. I gotta cut this. Hey, hey,
Huh? Your mic is muffling out a little bit. Say it again. Something's happening with your mic. Yo, David, what's up? Yo, David, what it do, David? David, we can't hear you. Can't hear you, David. What's up?
can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, I didn't want to cut that off like that. That
No,
was
it's
my
all
boss
good.
man calling. I'm gonna have to
It's
go
all
and
good.
see. I gotta go and check this situation out. Maybe we can pick this up sometime.
All right, we can do that.
All right, Tristan. Y'all have a great day. Hey, thanks for having me. Even though we may
Of
not
course,
agree on
man.
a lot, I appreciate you having me.
Thank you, man.
All right. Yes, sir.
Yep. All right, you guys. Richie, you want to come on? Anybody that wants to come on, you guys are more than welcome to come on. Let me go ahead and send the link. Let me go ahead and send the link. Hold on. I got to come over here, invite guests. Anybody, if you're watching this, you're more than welcome to come on. Again, you guys, well, we had the Book of Enoch. How does it apply to humanity today? Don't believe it applies to humanity today. I asked him, like, okay, where? And it's like you get this long, vicarious, indirect answer of archaeology and the prophecy in 70 AD and all that. And that's just my take on it. And then not only that, but most Christians don't even know about this book. And so that's why I asked him, do you believe that Christianity has been delusional this entire time? And it took him a long time to answer that one. But then he eventually said, yeah, like they're delusional, except for him. But then he later on stated that he was delusional. And if you go back and watch the recording, he goes, I'm delusional, and so are you. I said, no, I'm not delusional. I'm not going to say that about myself. I could say, I hope I'm not delusional. I could say, I hope I'm not. But to the best of my senses, best of my understanding, I'm not delusional. Try to be honest with myself in every way. Anyways, Richard, if you want to come on, you're more than welcome to. Shane C, thank you so very much for that. Oh, Caleb, what's up, man? You're here. David, do you remember when you told? Oh man, I wish he was here. Caleb, you could have hit him up on this. Hey, David, do you remember when you told me you'd rather burn alive than listen to me? Oh man, yeah, the discussion makes you want to dance in the streets. Again, you guys, that dancing in the streets is it's never going to go away. It's going to be talked about for all full preterists, future generations. That's for sure, especially the CBD, all versions of full preterism. Um, so at the end of the day, we see we got Richie. What's up, bro? How are you, man?
Hey, how's it going?
What's going, bro? What's happening?
Oh, nothing much. Just I was actually thinking about doing after after a long time of not posting on YouTube. I was thinking about doing a YouTube video today, in light of the Halloween spirit on the Orthodox doctrine of prayers for the dead.
Cool.
So, but I guess the original topic was about the Book of Enoch, right?
Yeah, what do you think about it? What does EO have to say about this?
Okay, so it's not in our canon, but we definitely take it as like as an important document. So we do get some of our doctrines from it. So like the EO position on like the fall of Genesis 6, that we definitely take the Enochian view. We don't take the Sethian view. Actually, a lot of the church fathers around the time of Augustine took the Sethian view, but more of like the apostolic fathers took the Enochian view of the fall of Genesis 6.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, Yeah, the Book of Enoch was cool. I thought like when I read it back in my Christian days, like I was like, wow, look at all these giants, right? Like all these huge people, and like it used to be like that back in the day, and these prophecies and stuff. But it was one of those books that you're just like, oh well, it wasn't included in the canon because it wasn't inspired. That's what we,
Mm,
how our backup on this. But
yeah.
anyways, man. So what's happening, bro? When are you going to debate full preterism and put them in their place and
You
change
know,
humanity, score
you know,
points for
I
Christianity?
I used to be much more of a debater in my Pentecostal days, but uh, I mean, I guess I could debate. Like I said, I'm not like the biggest debater, but um, I don't know. Who knows? But I would like to talk to somebody, like just have a discussion with somebody from IO, because
Yeah.
I totally disagree with their analysis of Romans 9. So, yeah.
But check this out, Lily. She states, "I don't think everyone should be allowed to have their own interpretation of the Bible." Right? I agree. I'm starting to side with orthodoxy. All the flavors of religion are a mess. So, and I
Praise
can see why
God.
people would want to go to orthodoxy because of the historical argument, right?
So speaking of Lily, I am actually giving. She posted earlier about Pascal's wager.
Yeah.
I was actually in the middle of writing a response. What I thought about Pascal's wager. So
Yeah, so like it's better. You might as well just live for God because it's better to live for Him, and then it's better to be safe than sorry, essentially, right? It's like you might as well just do it because then, hey, you die, you stand before God, He's gonna judge you because.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's better to understand Pascal's wager in light of his pragmatism.
Sure.
So, his pragmatism, for anybody that doesn't know, is essentially like it's not finding a belief system that is based on reality, but it's more based so on practicality. And so, I don't think it was ever meant to be an argument for the existence of God. It's My analysis is that it's essentially to get somebody out of the state of like being on the fence. Like if you're weighing the evidence for one position or the other,
Yeah.
then it's trying to get you to like just full on commit to whatever you think is more probable. Because like with the Christian, like if you're on the fence about Christianity or something like that, then you can weigh the evidence and you can find out like, okay, which one seems more probable, and then weigh the benefits for this religion. So um, yeah, it's basically to get somebody to fully commit rather than being an argument for God's existence.
Okay. And what else?
Just that, like, um, it's funny that we're actually talking about this because lately I've been re-going over the different arguments for the existence of God. But anyway, I don't want to detract from the main topic. So
Nah, I mean the topic is over. I was hoping that he was gonna stay because he was talking about how William Bell did a wonderful job with something. I'm like, no, he didn't.
mm.
Um, as a matter of fact, I said invalid file type. Hold on really quickly. I want to go ahead and let me see, screenshot this.
But I guess I can make a comment on the comment earlier about people not having their own interpretations. Well,
Yeah,
the Bible explicitly tells us that we're not to have any private interpretations. And
yeah, there it is right
so,
there.
no more
Sorry, go
tears.
ahead.
Okay.
No, no, I'm sorry. I
Um,
wanted to bring that up, and I do. I want you to touch on this after you're done. I want you to touch on this image real quick. Go ahead.
okay. Um, so, yeah, the fact that nobody should have their own interpretation now, there's a difference in we would say that the traditions of the church are guardrails. So like you can obviously read John 11:35 and say, and where it says Jesus wept. Okay, it doesn't, you don't have to have an infallible interpreter to know that Jesus cried in that text. Now, when it comes to questions about his like his dual nature, if somebody were to use that text and say, hey, look, God doesn't cry, Jesus cried, therefore Jesus is not God, then we would say that that's an improper, that's a private interpretation. So, and what do I mean by private? Like a private interpretation. So, like Tristan, if I like right now we're on a live stream, everybody can listen to this conversation. But if I wanted to talk to you in private, I would take you out of this public setting and I would just speak to you, just you and me. So, in the same way, the Bible was produced within a historic Christian community, which we would call the Orthodox Church. And so, it was also called the Catholic Church. But Catholic in the ancient church fathers, it basically just meant Orthodox. So um, this what we call Scripture was produced in a community that we call the church, and then when somebody takes those documents and takes them away from the community, now they start interpreting this document away, away from the original intent from that the community wanted it to mean. If that makes sense. So
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
say,
yeah, I understand the strong arguments of the entire thing. You know what I mean? Like I said, I could see why people go towards the Eastern Orthodox. Um, you know, and I could also see where Catholicism comes into play too, because they're the historic church. You know, um,
yeah,
but yeah,
definitely for the first 1,000 years of Christianity. So like, um, yeah, I try to match myself with the church of the first 1,000 years before the schism.
right,
So,
right, and and that's it.
so
We have right here. It says, "I'm looking forward to Rich's response." Yeah, that's what you were responding with. I haven't heard of Pascal's wager, but sounds like something I refer to. Keep in mind, might as well Jesus in your back pocket, something like that, maybe.
well, it's just kind of another analogy I would give is kind of like, insurance. So I'm in the insurance industry. I own an insurance agency, and so when it comes to like car insurance, it's weighing the benefits. It's doing a cost benefit analysis of like, okay, should I get the higher coverage because it's going to, because the probability of me having a higher the probability of me having a higher claim, a higher dollar amount for my claim, is greater. So it's just like I said, it's doing a cost benefit analysis. Like, okay, I have more to gain by living a Christian life than I do not being a Christian. So but like I said, it's not meant to be an argument for God's existence.
Yeah, I get that. I like. Lily says I like Christian ethics. I just don't like Yahweh, the Trinity, the Rapture theory, and much more. Let me see. Richie, can you beat 236 a month on an expedition?
What?
Can you beat $236 a month on an
Oh, 200.
expedition? Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I mean, uh, first of all, I'm only licensed in the state of Pennsylvania, but
Oh, okay.
but you know, definitely, I would definitely seek out a good
This is
agent.
interesting. This is interesting right here. Caleb says to me, the whole concept deletes the intimacy that being a Christian meant to be. Talking about Pascal's wager. That's actually very interesting because you see these type of philosophical investigations, these types of critical thinking of religious beliefs. A lot of it resurfaced and engendered during the Renaissance and the Enlightenment period.
Mhm.
So looking at things like, okay, should I be living for God, whatever? Well, I might as well. I think like the fear of God could come into play. Like, oh, well, I do it because I fear Him, or or love, whatever. My number one motivation was love, not so much the fear factor. I didn't like fear. Hold on, that's the tardy thing. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm gonna mute myself. Go ahead.
Um, Deletes the intimacy of being Christian. I'm not. Yeah. John 3:16. So it's just, yeah, like I said, the Pascal's wager is it's not meant to be an argument for God's existence. It's just to get you from the place of being on the fence. If you think that Christianity is more probable, then like what would your life look like as a Christian compared to somebody who's not a Christian, or whatever position you think is more probable. It's, weigh the benefits, and then if it's more probable that God exists, then then the argument follows that you should ensue what you think to be more probable. So
Yeah. And we got Bionic Latino. I'm sure I might as well, was what God meant by John 3:16. And of course, that's not what John 3:16 meant, Um, but really quickly, Richie, I wanted to go ahead and throw this up here. I was hoping that
sure.
David would talk about this, but here, and I brought this up in my debate with Don. If you look at William Bell's literature, which I think eventually he might take it down if he gets more flack for this, but here it says no more tears, right? Revelation
Hmm.
21:4. And so on the top, you have the destruction of Jerusalem, right? So that is supposed to symbolize AD 70 right there. See all the chaos and all that, right? Like,
Hmm.
okay. And on the bottom are those first century living saints. And it's in the same context on the front cover, it's in the same train of thought, and it reveals their psychology. It reveals their psychological paradigm of their eschatology. It's right there in plain sight. What are they looking at on the bottom? Well, they're not looking at a 5'5" Jewish man riding on a cumulus cloud. So then what are they looking at? Well, in the same context on the front cover, they're looking at the destruction of Jerusalem. It's literally right there side by side in the same context. And what are they doing? What's the reaction that you see on their faces? Look at that little girl. She's going, yay! And everyone's looking at this with these smiles of tears of joy. And that little girl right there is dancing around a little bit. And everybody on there like, come on, everyone, look at this. Wow. And they're gazing at that with tears of joy. And even if it was their friends and their family members that was trapped inside of the city gates, even if it was people they were trying to win over, people they knew, and they're watching Roman soldiers slaughter them for 5 months, they're all surrounded looking at that. You see, because that is what their theology is teaching.
Hmm.
And that's this whole dancing in the streets notion. You can see the little girl on the bottom. Yay.
Which
So
goes very much against what Jesus said to James and John when they said, "Oh, like when the I think it was, I forget which city it was that rejected them, and they said, let's be like Elijah and call down fire from heaven,
yeah.
and burn the city." And Jesus said, "You don't know what spirit you're of."
Yeah, oh wow, that's actually a really good one. Yeah,
You know,
that's really what it is, right? And then you have Jesus weeping over Jerusalem, right? And
right?
Daniel Rogers brought this up when he was me and Lance Conley. We had a podcast together, and he had said the only acceptable response would have been what Jesus did, and that'd be weeping. Now, just being a Christian, just being a good human being, if there's a Holocaust event that's happening in the next city. Okay, so the city over, you go, wow, you turn on the news, you go, wow, look, here comes this invasion of these soldiers, and they're just coming in here, and they're just for 5 months just slaughtering 1 million people, women and children. You see women performing cannibalism, eating their children because they're so hungry. And as a Christian, you're looking at that, right? And you go, that is the change to immortality in the twinkling of an eye. That's the CBB. When Paul said the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, that's the mental image that we should have been thinking about when we read those texts. The Roman soldiers slaughtering 1 million people. And we're going to be caught up to meet Christ in the air with the dead. What should I be thinking about when I read those texts? What's the mental image when I read those propositions? Oh, we should be thinking about the Roman soldiers doing that. And so that's the greatest phenomena. The resurrection of living the dead is the greatest phenomena that the Christians would have experienced, something much better than the Holy Spirit baptism, something much better than what they already had. So when they enter into that stage of the age to come, the not already, but not yet, that's they were rejoicing. That's the marriage supper of the Lamb. They busted out the harps, the viols, the temperance, and this is the wedding of the King of Kings. And so it is right here in plain sight. And people just don't understand how simple this is, that that is what the covenant body be. So when you take out the person of Christ in the fulfillment of the return of Christ, then what is it that they're to be rejoicing? That's why it makes so much more sense to say that when they saw Jesus, when they saw him, then they rejoiced. When they saw him, then they were like, yay, there's our Savior. But then when you remove him out of the picture, what else is left? The Roman soldiers besieged Jerusalem. And when they saw that, they said, yay. And they had the greatest fiesta, the greatest party. So that's why this whole dancing thing even came about, because that's what you would be doing if you were to experience the greatest spiritual experience, the meeting with Christ, the resurrection. That's what you would be doing. You would be rejoicing and dancing. But I just wanted to get your take on this, because this is precisely to the T what is happening here. You present this to full preterists and it still doesn't click. It's still, they still don't get it. Anyways, what's your take on this?
Yeah. So, I mean, so the main text is Revelation 21:4. I think their whole approach to the book of Revelation is just way off. Um, yeah, but to say that you're going to rejoice over a tragedy happening is not ethical. It's not moral. You know, I mean, God doesn't even take pleasure in the death of the wicked. But now you're dancing in the streets over, you know, like in this case, even if it brought about salvation for everybody else, like, do the ends justify the means? I don't know.
I'm glad you said that, because this is why I asked on when Dawn was on Jacob Berman's podcast. I asked this in my debate. Well, what if it was your wife that was in the city gates? What if it was your wife? And he had stated, well, how do you know that's even possible? It's like, are you
Mhm.
serious? How can you say that that's not possible? But yeah, nevertheless, I mean, this is what they teach. We have Caleb right here. He says, Tristan, you cracked me up. Say that is the changed immortality. Yes, that is the mental image that they must have read when they read that metaphoric language. If it's a metaphoric language, then what were they thinking about when they read that metaphoric language? They were thinking about the Roman soldiers besieging Jerusalem. So many Christians have that laughing as dad spank your brother energy. Laughing as dad spanks your brother energy. Yeah, this was
Mm.
more than just a spanking. This was an absolute slaughtering. I mean, goodness.
Yeah.
So
What do they
at the, at
mean by immortality? Like the change, like when they say immortality.
Okay, so Don describes it as a societal, like a figurative immortality, that it's a societal glorification. He actually compared it to when his Razorbacks won their football game. So it's kind of like when your favorite politician won the election, or your favorite sports player won, right? Here was all this tension, all this buildup, and then, bah, yeah, yes, they won. Now our chests are just sticking out, and we're now glorified and immortal in a figurative sense. In a societal sense was his terms. So
Oh,
just from society, right? So yeah,
because the Bible says the same thing about God. Like, is God figuratively immortal? Like, is he not
yeah,
really immortal? You know, like,
same
you know,
Greek word.
and this is what I was talking about before when Lance and I were on, is that the reason why full preterism is not right is because it goes against the gospel. The gospel is that one day we will receive the glory of God. We will be ontologically changed, um, you know, and to be like God. And so, yeah, Jesus talks about this in John 17:22. The glory which you have given me, I have given them, talking about theosis and from salvation from an Orthodox perspective. And so when you, like, the fact that the kingdom of God would be on all the earth, and that it would be a restoration of Eden, that is the gospel message. And so
The
if you,
restoration of Eden, right? The
yeah.
restoration of pre-fallen Adam, right? And I'm glad you said that, because the fact that you still have sin in your psychology, even if you're a Christian, a full preterist, shows that that restoration did not take place. And Don had stated that pre-fallen Adam in his pre-fallen state could have done other sins. I quoted Thomas Aquinas, I quoted patristics that have talked about pre-fallen Adam, and he goes, he could have done other sins. I brought this up to Sam Frost after the debate, and Sam Frost said, did Don lose his mind? What other sins could he have done? So that means he could have murdered Eve, he could have raped her, he could have performed bestiality, he could have killed himself. I mean, he could have done all the other sins, and it would not have brought covenantal death, because the only sin that would have brought covenantal death was eating the fruit. So it's like Don didn't even, even bothered to in his entire ministry even go here. But that's exactly to the T. The fact that the resurrection has not yet taken place. How do we know this? Because sin is still prevalent in the world. And therefore, you would have to say that sin and evil and chaos and everything that we're seeing, that would have happened in the Garden of Eden despite Adam eating the fruit, because there's no physical consequence. If Adam ate the fruit, what was the physical consequence? According to Christianity, that's what warped and polluted the minds of humanity to have all this evil. So even if we take Don's view, which he might as well just become a covenant creationist, he might as well. That's the only way to get out of it. He said now he's believes in covenant creationism, which is in tandem with covenant eschatology, covenant creation, covenant eschatology. So it's in tandem, right? But right here, we shall meet him in the air, the wedding of the King of Kings. Look, there's the destruction of the temple. That's the wedding right there. He puts the rings right around it. It's right there in plain sight.
Yeah, I've talked about this before about how if you read starting in Matthew 20, because you don't just start in Matthew 24, you have to go back even to Matthew 20 when Jesus comes into Jerusalem, and he makes I would say that he makes the distinction along the way between the wedding and the destruction of the city. Yeah, if you read the parable, if you read the parable in Matthew 21, where people were invited to the wedding, and basically people did not the people did not uh, come, they didn't accept the invitation. God burned their city, and then he sent them back out in order to get people to come to the wedding. He says the wedding is ready, but so invite people to it. So that should show you that the destruction of the city is not the wedding.
Well, yeah, those are good points. But listen, bro, I got to take off. Let's go ahead and let's do this again. Yeah,
Yeah,
just hit me up, man. We'll go ahead and do it again. Thank you guys for your attention.
maybe
Richard, I
we'll
just
talk
want you to
more
real quick.
philosophy then.
Yes, absolutely. All right, man. I'll see you around.
All right, see you. Bye.
Peace out, guys. Bye.